The schedule is out, and on paper, the Chargers have a much tougher one in 2025. But after going through every single game, we think they are again getting 11 wins and will be back in the playoffs.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Droegemeier, and we've been covering the Chargers now for 9 seasons together. This is our 7th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day. Thank you to the everydayers out there for making us your first listen. But to make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, now that the schedule is out, we get to do one of the most fun things in the world, which is go game by game and predict every single one of these 17 games on the Chargers schedule. And I got some big news for you. I got the Chargers taking down the Chiefs to start the 2025 season, making a major statement. And that is another thing that I think the Chargers are going to have more success with this year, is beating some of the better teams in the league. And they're going to have to if they want to get back to the playoffs in 2025.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would see the 11 win number and think, okay, so the Chargers aren't getting any better. But I think if you're looking at these teams being as good as we think that they are, which I believe is 9 games they have this year against playoff teams from last year, they would have to be a substantially better team in 2025 to hit 11 wins. And not only that, they would have to beat some really good teams along the way, which I think would show us a little bit more about, okay, hey, maybe this team is ready to start beating the teams that they're going to have to play in the playoffs. But I think that 11 number would be pretty significant because it is likely going to get you the number 5 seed unless they change the seeding rules. Maybe you'd even get a better seed. But with how things stand, it would probably be like last year. I think 11 wins is a for sure playoff bid, and also either a 5th or a 6th seed at the lowest, I would say. But I would say that getting to 11 should be kind of the magic number for this team. I think that would show the improvement that you're hoping for in year 2 of Harbaugh, because you know that you're going to have to beat some really good teams along the way. And I do think that with those wins, then maybe you'll have some faith, and that's why we wanted to go through it in every single game. But David, I think 11, if they can get to that, man, I would sign up to that right now.
You 100% believe it. Against this schedule, this is not the same type of soft cookie cutter type schedule that they had last year.
No, it's not.
A fourth place schedule. This is a second place schedule, and you are going to have to run the gauntlet, especially later on in the season. It is going to be rough finishing out this 2025 season for the Chargers, and they're going to have to win some games that they maybe are not going to be favored in, but that's going to have to happen. That's going to have to show that growth, that maturation process from year 1 to year 2, and I think that they can do it.
And I think for the Chargers, kind of like it was last year to a certain extent, is you're going to have to beat the teams you should beat, and also add a couple of games against teams that maybe you're not favored, like you said, and beat those teams as well. So it's keeping that kind of consistency of beating teams that are worse than you, and also punching above your weight class sometimes. But let's start, David, going through these with the first 3 games, which are of uber importance because they're 3 divisional games, which you almost never see back to back to back to start your season. We know you have them going 1-0, which would be awesome to see the Chargers beat the Chiefs and specifically beat Patrick Mahomes for the first time since 2021.
First time since 2021, and Daniel, it's time. It is time to get this thing started off with a major statement. This is what you want to do to start your 2025 season in front of the entire world. Brazil, the big stage on YouTube where there is no restrictions, there's no paywall. It is free to view for everyone. They put cool. 2 of the most exciting teams on that center stage, and I expect the Chargers to get this big victory. Everyone healthy, hopefully everyone available. Both your tackles, Derwin James, Justin Herbert, everybody out there with his new complement of weapons. I think the Chiefs are on the downswing, and I think the Chargers are ascending, and that's why I have them taking that big, all-important first victory to start the season. But not only do I have them beating the Chiefs, I also have them taking down the Raiders after a very short flight from LA to Vegas, probably about 30 minutes. But it's not here. They're not there to play. They're there to take care of business, and I expect that they will do that. They catch the Raiders early in the season with the new coach, with the new quarterback, with a lot of change that they have to contend with, and the Chargers have continuity, and I think that is definitely going to be important in them getting that second victory. But they're also going to go to the Broncos at home, and they're going to beat the Broncos at home. I love the fact that they get them at SoFi Stadium earlier on in the season. I think the Chargers are a more talented team, especially offensively. That team defensively, obviously, is going to be one of the better defensive teams in the NFL for sure. Yeah. But I just feel like the firepower that the Chargers have is going to be enough to get it done, and that's why they are going to take that first 3 times they play an AFC West team since the 1980s, and they're going to start 3-0.
That'd be awesome, man. And what a huge kind of boost as far as if you want to potentially go for the division crown, getting those 3 wins off the bat. I'm not as optimistic about this team, at least in week 1. The Chargers obviously have a lot of change too, but I do think that the big thing for me in that specific matchup is the Chargers do have a lot of new firepower, but it's a lot of new young firepower. And I just don't know if the rookies and the young guys are going to be ready to make the impact to take down that team in week 1 in a different country. That's why I have them going 0-1, also giving Steve Spagnuolo basically a bye week plus to come up with crazy exotic blitz packages to send against the Chargers' interior offensive line is like nightmare fuel. And obviously Chris Jones is still exceptionally scary. So I have them going 0-1, but bouncing back on Monday Night Football, Jim Harbaugh versus Pete Carroll for the first time in a long time. Geno Smith's only second game with an entirely new team, kind of to your point. I do think the Raiders will be competent this year, but I don't think they're going to be great yet. Week 3 versus the Broncos, I also have the Chargers getting the win at home. It feels like the Chargers always have to play in Mile High late in the season. I wish we could flip-flop that. Playing Mile High in September would be great, please. and keep that home game for later on in the season. But I do think they get it done and go to 2-1. Go to 2-1 in the division, which is obviously super important. And they did make key additions. I'm more scared of the Broncos this year than I was last year, but I think it's going to come down to will Bo Nix make a leap or will he suffer a sophomore slump? And I think that's yet to be determined. But that leaves a couple more games in this first batch here, David. Week 4 at the Giants and week 5 versus the Commanders. So far, I have them 2-1, and you have them 3-0. Do they get to 4-0?
Yes, they do get to 4-0, going against the Giants, whether it's Jackson Dart or whether it's Russell Wilson. I still feel like this is a team that's in transition. They're still trying to find who they are, find their identity. They have some very talented players on both sides of the ball, but I don't feel like they are all studying from the same sheet of music quite yet. So that's why I feel like the Chargers are the better team here. They definitely have the better quarterback, and he's going to show out like he did the last time he was with playing against the Giants, where he had probably one of the most viral clips that we've ever seen, throwing that 60-plus yard bomb to Jalen Guyton. That was pretty awesome. And then, of course, this one right here is going to be where the Chargers suffer their first loss for me, going up against the Commanders with Jaden Daniels. The last time Jaden Daniels and Justin Herbert went head-to-head, it was an all-time college football game. I expect nothing less in this one. I think they are going to go full at it, and hopefully we see the full version of Justin Herbert running that football and getting after it. But I just think this is going to be a really tough one, so I have the Chargers dropping it, but still starting 4-1 through their first 5 games.
I think every fan would sign up for that if they had the choice right now. Week 4 at the Giants. I also have that as a win. East Coast trip, obviously tough. But yeah, they're in disarray right now. Coaches kind of coaching for their job. But who is the quarterback going to be? Is it going to be game 4 of rookie Jackson Dart? Is it game 1 of Jackson Dart in that game? Have to go up against Malik Neighbors for the first time. That'll be interesting as well. But then week 5 versus Commanders, I also have them losing that one. I think it could be a coin flip game. Commanders obviously coming off of an NFC Championship appearance. Jaden Daniels versus Justin Herbert is going to be electric. But I do think that Jaden Daniels, especially that ability to move the chains on third down and to pick up a couple really annoying conversions when you really think you have a stop. Those are the worst. And so I have the Chargers getting to 11 wins by starting 3-2 through their first 5. And this next part is a part that's very important because this is the softest part of their schedule we're going to be getting into. And this is the part where the Chargers are going to have to stack wins to prepare themselves for what is a brutal stretch over their last 5 games. So we're going to keep predicting every single game of the Chargers 2025 schedule and getting into the next 6 coming up right after this and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Say goodbye to sticky notes, scribbled plans on the fridge, and overlapping calendar invites. The Skylight Calendar is here to bring clarity to the chaos and help families stay organized without the stress. This sleek digital display syncs with your existing calendars, Google, Apple, Outlook, and more, making it simple to track appointments, practices, dinners, reminders, all in one easy-to-see place. I love all of the things that come along with the Skylight Calendar, especially now that I have a baby for sure. But David got his Skylight Calendar as well, and I know there's a couple things he really likes about it too.
I really do. My favorite thing about the Skylight Calendar is that it syncs to mine and my wife's Google Calendar, so we never miss any birthdays, or if I have a tea time, my wife will know where I'm at.
Yeah, that's definitely great too. I mean, and we know David loves his tea times.
I also really enjoy receiving new pictures from my family members on my Skylight frame. It really helps me feel connected with them, especially when I live a few states away.
And right now, Skylight is offering our listeners $30 off their 15-inch calendars by going to skylightcow.com/NFL. Go to skylightcow.com/NFL for $30 off your 15-inch calendar. That's skylightcal.com/NFL. David, at this point, I have the Chargers 3-2. You have the Chargers 4-1 after a 4-0 start and getting things really heated in the division with a 3-0 start just in the AFC West by itself. Now we come up to a portion of the schedule with a lot of teams that are very hard to kind of decipher at this point on whether they're going to either take a step back or take a step forward in what were pretty, mediocre seasons in a lot of the cases, or bad seasons, like some of the teams that we're going to talk about in this next stretch here. But it starts with week 6 at the Dolphins, week 7 at home versus the Colts, and then you have week 8 against the Minnesota Vikings, Thursday Night Football, J.J. McCarthy versus Jim Harbaugh. Let's go with those next 3 here, David. You have the Chargers right now currently at 4-1. How do you see those next 3 games playing out?
Yep, going against the Dolphins here in South Beach, looking to even up that kind of head-to-head record with Tua and Justin Herbert. Tua has the advantage by 1 game as of right now, but I have Justin Herbert and the Chargers evening that thing on up, going to 2-2 and picking up another big victory and improving to 5-1. Then they're going to see the Colts, and we'll see, what's going to happen with Anthony Richardson. Let's just see if Khalil Mack and Tuli Pelotu is going to make him tap out of the football game after hitting him repeatedly. I have the Chargers also picking up that victory, going to 6-1 to start the season through their first 7 games. A fantastic start. But I think this is where they're going to suffer their next loss, which I'm not really excited about this game. You get the Vikings on a short week. You got Kevin O'Connell and that offense with Justin Jefferson, the scariest wide receiver in the National Football League, who just got Sam Darnold paid big time to the tune of $100+ million. I just feel like this one is going to be a tough football game. And I think the Chargers are going to drop that one. I think they're going to 6-2 through their first 8.
Again, I still think that's something where a lot of fans would be pretty ecstatic about that. I think that it makes sense for that Thursday night game, which I'll get to too. So at this point, 3-2, week 6 at the Dolphins. Any trip east to South Beach has been something that the Chargers have historically struggled with, and a lot of teams do. And also you kind of get the Miami flu situation too, where there's a lot of great nightlife in the Miami area, maybe not so much within the Jim Harbaugh era of, player discipline and maybe curfews, things like that. But that is something that's caught teams several times. I know for sure it's caught a couple of Chargers games. Look at some of those blowouts we saw probably about, 7-8 years ago. You can find them there, and you're like, yeah, that team had a long night the night before in Miami. Can you blame them? But I have the Chargers winning that one. Tua versus Herbert, if Tua is available. That's the hard thing with the Dolphins is just you have no certainty knowing Tua is going to be there. Well, Tyreek Hill be on the team at that point. They did have a top 10 scoring defense last year, but did lose some pieces. Lost Javon Holland, lost Calais Campbell. Their best offensive lineman retired with Teron Armstead, and I don't necessarily think they have a plan for it. And a coaching staff that honestly could be fighting for their job or could start to flail. And that's just kind of how things go when things could be. Week 6 probably still in it at that point, but I have the Chargers picking up that win. Week 7 versus the Colts, will it be Anthony Richardson? Will it be Daniel Jones? I think either way the game plan stays the same. Stop Jonathan Taylor from having a field day, and you're going to win that game. The Colts feel like a prime candidate as a team that was still fighting for a playoff spot last year, even with a struggling Anthony Richardson. That could take a step back. Maybe they're a little bit better, but I have the Chargers pulling this one off. Get to 5-2, and then week 8 Thursday night football against the Vikings. I have the Chargers taking an L there too to bring them to 5-3. I think JJ McCarthy at that point, if he is starting all season, will have had time to gain some confidence, and just will be more comfortable in the Kevin O'Connell system, who obviously has a very quarterback friendly system. They won 14 games with Sam Darnold. It's still a good team. I think this game could be a toss-up, but on a short week with Brian Flores as the defensive coordinator on the other side, who is just known for just blitzing and having all sorts of other exotic blitzes, and you're trying to get a team that really struggled with the quick game aspect last year to be able to handle that on a short week, I think it's a big ask. So I do have the Chargers losing that one to get to 5-3, which still I think is a decent spot to be at this point of the season, but there's still games right after this that they really have to start stacking up those wins, including week 9, David, at the Titans, week 10 versus the Steelers on Sunday Night Football, and then week 11 at the Jaguars, another trip to Florida.
Yeah, this middle part of the schedule for the Chargers is very important that they take advantage of it. They have to get fat off to this part of the schedule, including the last few games that we talked about. But going into week 9 against the Tennessee Titans, another rookie quarterback here, no real identity to speak of, a team that's clearly rebuilding and really trying to find, where they're going to be and how they're going to get, back to prominence. But I don't think it's going to be against the Chargers. I feel like the Chargers are just way too much of a talented team there. And, Jesse Minter loves to mess with rookie quarterbacks. So I have the Chargers picking up that victory against the Titans. Week 10 against the Steelers. These are always crazy football games. No matter what happens, who's playing, but who's our quarterback going to be? We have absolutely no idea. They don't even have any idea. I'm sure they want it to be Aaron Rodgers, but even if it is Aaron Rodgers, he doesn't scare me at all. I mean, what shape is the 39, 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers going to be in? And how is he going to be able to lead a team, another new team, that he has absolutely no connection to as of right now? So I think if it's Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph, I'm not intimidated. I have the Chargers also beating the Steelers as well, going 8-2. And then week 11, the last game of the slate against the Jacksonville Jaguars, another team with a lot of newness there. New GM, new coach, same mediocre quarterback. I have the Chargers enjoying their time, and in Jacksonville, I'm picking up a big-time victory and closing out the slate here, 9-2, looking really, really good heading into the gauntlet, the really, really worst part of their schedule to close things out.
Yeah, I agree with all of those. I mean, week 9 at the Titans, I have this as a win to the worst team in football last year with a rookie quarterback who still has, lots of question marks on both sides. You can't write off any team. Player that would scare me the most in Tennessee would still be Jeffrey Simmons, just wrecking things on the interior for you. But it might end up being one of the easiest, if not the easiest games on your schedule, a game that you have to win. Week 10 versus the Steelers Sunday Night Football, another win for me to make them 7-3. Rematch of one of the more frustrating games from last season. Assuming Aaron Rodgers will be there, I'm assuming he's going to be there even with this prediction and predicting them to win. But I just sense dysfunction. Even with DK Metcalf now, you get rid of George Pickens. Maybe that's addition by subtraction, maybe in their mind. But their defense will always scare me with Cam Hayward and TJ Watt. For the last 7 games I've alternated. Steelers won last year. I have the Chargers winning this year. Week 11 at the Jaguars. I also have that as a win. Brand new GM and head coach combo. First time playing since the 27-0 game. The Chargers' last win against the Jacksonville Jaguars was 2020. Even when Jacksonville had Trevor Lawrence last year, they were 2-8. So now they have Travis Hunter. They have Brian Thomas Jr., who was awesome. One of the only, rookies that could say they potentially had a better season than Ladd McConkey last year because he was just that good. I think they have some really good young players. That's a team that's probably going in the right direction. Maybe they're a little bit feisty, but I'm not sold on Trevor Lawrence, and I think they're probably a year away from really turning things around and having me think of the Jaguars as a team to really fear. And more than that, as a team that the Chargers shouldn't be beating, because this is a team on a schedule that gets really tough. I mean, David's going to have a pretty precipitous slide with where he's at record-wise right now. This is a team that's going to be a while before I'm saying this is a team that the Chargers with Jim Harbaugh shouldn't beat. under this new regime. But we still have 6 more games to get to. At this point, I have the Chargers 8-3. David has them at a ridiculous 9-2 through 11 games. But there's still 6 more games to get to, and we're getting into all that and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. Let's get into the rest of this schedule, David, and talk about which of these games the Chargers are going to win down the stretch where they're really going to be tested by a lot of very good teams. But thank you, as always, for making us your first listen. Make sure you guys are also back here tomorrow for Buy or Sell Tuesday, getting into the biggest Charger storylines and overreactions, where you can hit us up on all of our social media and give us your buy or sells there, or call into the voicemail line at 323-524-7924 so you can leave us your 30-second Chargers buy or sell. The voicemails are always more likely to get on the show. But if you need a second listen, make sure to check out the Locked On NFL Scouting Show with our guys Kyle Krabs and Joe Marino, as they make you the most informed NFL fan this offseason on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts from. David, I'm scared of what's about to happen for you, because I know where you're at. I know where you're going to end up. And we have 6 more games to get to, but it starts with a bye week in week 12 at 8-3 for me, 9-2 for you. Going into the bye week with either of those records would be awesome. A chance to heal up at the end of the season, which is something we've been clamoring for. And stacking up wins to this point will have been really crucial. But another important stretch of games is coming up, including week 13 against the Raiders at home, week 14 against the Super Bowl champions at home on Monday Night Football, and also week 15 against the Chiefs in Arrowhead. How do you have these next 3 games playing out?
Yeah, this is the part of the schedule where Charger fans are not going to be very happy with me, but it is what it is. The Chargers not used to having a late bye week. I think they're going to come out of here a little bit flat, and I think they are going to lose to the Raiders.
The Raiders?
I do not want to make this prediction. It just seems like every single year the Chargers are going to lose a game that they should not lose, and I unfortunately have this one as being one of those games that I see that being, the end result here. And then after that, the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm terrified of Saquon going up against the Chargers rushing defense. It's definitely not something that I look forward to. I think Saquon and also Jalen Hurts are going to run all over the Chargers, and I think that's one that they're going to take that loss as well. So back-to-back losses here. And then week 15 versus the Chiefs at Arrowhead. The Chargers haven't beat the Chiefs at Arrowhead since 2021, that victory we talked about earlier in the show. I don't think that it's going to be this time where they pick up. They're not going to sweep the Chiefs. So 0-3 to start this first 3 games, 3 block at the end of the season. Not good, but those losses had to kind of stack up somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, depending on obviously how you think they're going to do for that first stretch, right? But I understand the way you went at it. I mean, I had the Chargers at 8-3 at this point, so I definitely have them beating the Raiders in week 13 to get to 9-3. Again, getting extra rest. They're coming off a bye week. The first time they're coming off the Brazil game. Both times they're going to have at least 10 days of rest before they face the Raiders. FTR, the Chargers get the sweep for the second straight season. I just think there's still too many holes on the defensive side for the Raiders. Could they split with the Chargers in 2026? Maybe. Will they split with the Chargers in 2025? In my mind, absolutely not. Harbaugh beat the teams they should last year, and the Raiders are one of the teams that they should beat in 2025. Week 14, Eagles, Monday Night Football. Super Bowl champs still loaded on both sides. Saquon Barkley, terrifying. How do you get pressure versus that offensive line? Another mobile quarterback that can pick up key third downs with his legs, even when you do everything right. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, a crazy defense. Jalen Carter going versus the Chargers interior is still very, very scary. Give me the Eagles in that one. Nothing, no shame there. Week 15, Chiefs at Arrowhead. I have the Chargers winning this one. Justin Herbert gets his first win, like we've talked about. First time I picked the Chargers to beat the Chiefs in a long time. With how many close games they've played against this team, I think it falls their way in one of these matchups in 2025. The reason I have it being the second one in this, prediction is because, like I talked about with the first time, by this point in the season, you'll have had the Cam Harts and the Tarheeb Stills have sprouted up, right?
Yeah.
You'll have rookies, I think, more ready to be impact players in this rivalry. So I think that's when the Chargers get it done. In Arrowhead, the Chargers have always, they played pretty well on the road last year anyway, so I don't think they're afraid of Arrowhead. Justin Herbert knows what it's like. Rookies, obviously a big game, but the game in Brazil is going to be tough as well. I do think the Chargers split with the Chiefs this year. I think they get this one done to go to 10-4 through 14 games. Just because, like I said, every game has been so close, and I think if they can get this done, it'll be a great sign for the playoffs if you're taking out the team that's been to however many straight Super Bowls, 3 straight Super Bowls. So now I have them 10-4. You have them coming off an 0-3 stretch. Let's get into these last 3 games here. We have Week 16 at the Cowboys in Dallas. You have Week 17 revenge game against the Texans at home, and then you have the Broncos in Week 18. David, how do you have those last crucial 3 games of the season playing out?
Yeah, after starting off really, really hot at basically 9-2, the Chargers pick up 3 losses in a row to get to 9-5, and unfortunately, I have them picking up that 4th loss in a row against the Cowboys here, and this is a game that I really went back and forth on. It was very, very hard for me, but I also do not like going up against CeeDee Lamb, and also Micah Parsons is a monster, and he has game-wrecking ability, and so this is another one of those games where I feel like the Chargers are the better team, but I just don't know if I can feel comfortable, which is horrible because I plan on being in attendance for this game. And the last time I was in attendance for a game, the Chargers got smoked. So obviously that was the playoff game against the Texans. But then after that, I have the Chargers getting back in the win column, big time revenge game against the Texans. This is a game I know a lot of Chargers players have circled on their calendar that they want to get some get back here, and I think they are going to do it. They're going to get up for this game. They're going to be highly motivated, and I think they are going to take it to the Texans. They're going to get that big-time victory going to 10-5, and then against the Broncos at Denver in the elements, probably late December, January timeframe. It's going to be ugly. But I think finally the vision that the Chargers offense wants out there and their ability to really pound the rock, run the football, that's going to travel like we expected it to in year 1. I think now in year 2 with Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris and Mekhi Becton and Joe Alt over there just absolutely busting heads and opening up massive holes is going to get the Chargers that big time road victory they need to get that momentum heading into the playoffs and finishing their season at 11-6.
Yeah, which you would take, right? I mean, 11-6 is great. You beat them last year in the Mile High for the first time in a long time. You broke that streak, and that was against the better Bronco team than we had seen from them in a long time. So I had them 10-4 going into that Cowboys game in Week 16. You had them ending 11-6, obviously. I somehow also have that as a loss. That's why I'm so upset that you also do, because, I mean, everyone has Cowboy fan friends that they just absolutely can't stand. It's going to kill me if the Chargers lose that game and I have to deal with those people, because the Chargers absolutely should beat the Cowboys.
Yeah.
I think while the Chargers will win some games that they didn't win last year against better teams, they are going to still maybe have, 1 or 2 games where they slip up. And I think the Cowboys with Dak and CD, and obviously Micah Parsons, now they just traded for George Pickens, offensive line still pretty good. I still think they'll probably have a nice bounce back season, the Cowboys, and be a legitimate team. And I think that this is a letdown game after a big win in Arrowhead that I have the Chargers grabbing. So Week 17 versus the Texans, I also have that as a win. Revenge game, you get them at home. The Chargers have more weapons to combat the tough defense that absolutely bottled them up in that matchup in the playoffs. More competent weapons for Justin Herbert to throw the ball to, where he didn't have anyone outside of Ladd McConkey in that game, like I talked about with the Chiefs game. The young players, the young weapons, the Gadstons, the Harrises, the KLSs will be more ready to go around this time and ready to exact some revenge. And another way that shows you this is a team that's better than the team we saw last year and could potentially win some games in the playoffs. Week 18, after going 11-5 versus the Texans, I have the Chargers slipping up against the Broncos in Mile High in early January. I do think kind of the Broncos are maybe where the Raiders are kind of where the Broncos were last year. I think the Raiders will be better, but the Chargers can still sweep them. I think this is the year that the Broncos split the season series, a very talented team that still should have a good defense. Also, will the Chargers need this game in Week 18? Will this be a game that carries a ton of importance? It could potentially decide the division. It could not. The Chargers could be locked up in whatever playoff seeding that they're already in going into week 18. So I do have this as a loss for the Chargers. They did have some key additions, Jahdae Barron. They obviously got RJ Harvey to fill that backfield, and then had the big signings like Talanoa Hufanga, Dre Greenlaw, Evan Ingram. Didn't really lose any key pieces. The Broncos should be a good team in 2025. I have them splitting the season series. But David, 11-6 for the Chargers. Like I said, I think we would all sign up for that right now, and I do think that would be a major step for them and a good sign to maybe show you that, hey, things can be different this time around once the playoffs come knocking.
Yeah, 11-6 this year against those 9 playoff teams. That would be a heck of a statement. But I think also what we all want, what we're all expecting in year 2 of Jim Harbaugh, is not just getting to the playoffs, it's winning when you get there. So I think this type of schedule is going to prepare them to go into the playoffs and feel like they are more ready to be able to take on that challenge. And obviously, experience of being back there last year is only going to make them hungry to come back and get a victory in the playoffs, hopefully multiple this season.
Yeah, I mean, you said, I mean, it's 7 playoff teams, 9 playoff games, right? Because you're going to have to play the Broncos and the Chiefs twice. So more than half your schedule is going to be against playoff teams in 2025. And I still think that the Chargers, I mean, I don't see how they're worse. You know, like they have obviously pieces and maybe specific positions that they could be worse. You know, losing Poona Ford is tough. We'll see how they replace Joey Bosa on the edge and those snaps. But like the Chargers are deeper than they were last year. They have much more firepower than they had last year. And I think they're, you know, just especially defensively, you have some really young players, the Deion Henleys, the Cam Harts, the Tarheeb Stills, that should be it continuing to ascend while potentially adding more playmakers in the draft and maybe having someone like a Junior Colson come along. So
yeah,
I think the Chargers will be very good in 2025 again as this Jim Harbaugh team continues to try to build it the right way, but not kind of risk everything and make big time moves that come with big time risks. They're trying to build something sustainable. I think the steady ship keeps going in the right direction as the Chargers get back into the playoffs and have a team that's more ready to compete once they get there. But that is going to wrap things up for today's show. Thank you guys for going through and let us know what you think the Chargers 2025 record is going to be in the comments, or hit us up at LockedOnLAC on Twitter tomorrow, where you can get your buy or sell in, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, where you can also do that, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page, and we post the show to all those places as well. To make sure you don't miss buy or sell tomorrow, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. And if you want to, you can also call into the Locked On Chargers voicemail line at 323-524-7924 and get your 30-second Chargers buy or sell or Fan Mail Friday question in, because we will be with you every day for the rest of the week as your team every day. So make sure you guys are back here tomorrow for buy or sell, and give us your questions, give us your buy or sells. We want to know what you guys want to hear about. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.